Right now, I want to go to Ken Klukowski, Breitbart Senior Legal Analyst. Ken, how do you do, sir?
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very good. They finally got him, Ken Klukowski. And I'm not talking about Hunter. I'm talking about Supreme Court Justice Alito. He's got to resign in shame now, doesn't he?
Oh, my goodness. This is just the latest installment, Mike. And I'm going to go right to the bottom line here. This is reverse court packing, which you and I have discussed before. This is the left was unable to stop conservative justices from getting on the court. Their plan to actually pack the court, to expand it and put new seats on it, was blown up because you had a handful of moderate Democrats. Evidently, there are some issues regarding which there are still some Democrats who can be called moderates who just were not willing to go along with blowing up 1/3 of the constitutional form of government by just creating new additional Supreme Court seats to pack with our friends when the current Supreme Court isn't giving us the decisions that we want, and not able to do that as well. This continues to be an effort by the left to delegitimize the institution of the court with a specific target on discrediting the most conservative justices, Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, to force them to recuse on cases that the left care about, all about trying to get the outcomes that they want. So in other words, there's just two ways to make the left side of the equation exceed the right side when you have 9 seats. One is to add more seats on the left. The other is to subtract seats on the right. And everything going on with Justice Alito right now, everything he said, there was nothing wrong. That is all normal conversation. Every federal judge engages in those sorts of conversations. Every federal judge is permitted by legal ethics and judicial ethics to engage in those conversations. This whole thing saying, oh, my goodness, now he said something, he needs to go, he's corrupt. All of that is an attempt by the left to blow up the institution of the Supreme Court, and we all need to be aware of it because we all need to be unified against it.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about what happened. So there was a Supreme Court Historical Society annual dinner on June 3rd, so last week or so. And there was this progressive woman, Lauren Windsor, who went to the event. It says, as a member of the society under her real name, but she pretended to be a conservative when she went up to Sam Alito.
In fact,
so
let
she
me
goes up to Sam Alito.
Squeeze in 1 second just to help you lay that foundation, because I used to be a member of that society, okay? So I used to go to that event. It's a non-ideological thing. You've got liberals, you've got conservatives, you've got moderates. It's where you go to a dinner at the Supreme Court. All the justices are there, or at least all of them were there when I've been there. But it's justices across the board, from the right to the left. Everyone's just mingling with them. There's a sit-down dinner. There's drinks. You have all of these one-on-one conversations. So that's what that kind of setting is, and anyone can join the Supreme Court Historical Society. So I just want to set the table as to what that event is. Go ahead.
No, that's interesting because this is different than like what Project Veritas does when they have like a honeypot sting operation where they have a sexy woman go on a date or undercover, and they're like, oh, this reveals what they really think. The way you characterize it, Sam Alito knows that there's all types of people around.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
And like there could be a progressive woman standing right next to me, or over there, or within earshot. As you'll hear in the video, it's loud. Like there's people all over. This isn't like a in-depth secret recording. It's just like it's right there.
In fact, let me just interject again. The last time I was there, this is several years ago, I too had a conversation with Justice Alito. I also had a conversation with Chief Justice Roberts. I also had a conversation with Justice Stephen Breyer on the left. So, I mean, everyone there has free access just to, mix and mingle and have pleasant one-on-one chats with all the justices across the board. The justices, many of them, well, I think all of them now, know who I am. When I speak with liberal justices, they know they're speaking with a conservative. I'm a member of the bar. I'm a member of the Supreme Court's bar. I'm an officer of that court. But I mean, these people see my stuff. Yeah, they know what legal arguments I make. They know where I weigh in, and we still have conversations anyways. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So here is, I want to play two clips. This is as presented by the ladies at The View. So you're going to hear Whoopi. And this is important because this is the point of all this. Like, that's the point. That's why they did this video, so that they could put it on The View and influence public opinion as people still watch that show. All right. So here's Justice Alito, and then you'll hear Whoopi, and then there's one more clip.
As a Catholic and as someone who really cherishes my faith, I just don't.
Okay, so this is the activist. This is the progressive activist.
I don't know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right. One side or the other is going to win. There can be a way of working, a way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised.
I think that the solution really is winning the moral argument. People in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you.
So she also...
Oh, did you hear joy there? Oh, I can't. Let everyone reel. Okay, wow. Okay, so he said there's some things that can't be compromised on, and we need to win the moral argument. And he said, I agree when the woman said we need to return to godliness. What's his sin here?
Well, and of course, you're a Christian and a conservative. I'm a Christian and I'm a conservative. Her precise word choice, the way she structured her sentences, she wasn't quite speaking our language. But, of course, we all know people who share our faith who, don't talk for a living the way you or I do. And so, you just, you don't parse the grammar, and say it's odd that you would phrase it that way. So I'm sure Justice Alito hearing it is okay, I get her point. I understand where she's going. And he engaged in a conversation on culture that is consistent with his Catholic faith. And all federal judges, look, I know dozens of federal judges, scores of federal judges. And again, I've had many conversations over the years with Supreme Court justices across the ideological spectrum. The late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she would go speak to liberal groups. And when she did, she would also make commentary on culture or on politics from her perspective. When you accept a lifetime appointment on the federal bench, you don't take a vow of silence. The rules are clear. The ethical rules are clear. You do not talk about issues that are before the court for decision. You don't talk about issues that you think might come before the court for decision. You can talk about all sorts of other things, including commenting on cases that have already been decided. And maybe the Dobbs thing is going to come up in a bit. All of that is completely acceptable language for a justice to have. They're still human beings, and they still have neighbors, they still have friends, they still have families, they still go to ball games, they go to concerts. They still enjoy the full range of human activity and interaction, and they're
Catholic.
Permitted to have any view they want on anything. You just don't, and in fact, and they all do. You just don't talk outside the court on the matters the court is deciding, and that's it.
Okay, but he says we need to return to godliness.
Yeah, there's a commentary there on culture. I mean, any observant Catholic, like an observant evangelical, and we could, you and I could rattle off, many other faiths, believes that because we believe what we believe, in terms of our moral principles, like for you and me, as God reveals in his word in the Bible, we believe that when those principles are how people are living their lives, it's not just pleasing to God, it's also better for our neighbors. It's better for society. It's good when people are honest, when they are trustworthy, when they don't hurt other people, when they're not engaging in criminal wrongdoing. When we have transparent and accountable government that does its job well, when we root out public corruption and when we go after greed. I mean, it's go down the list. That there are conversations like that taking place among millions of Americans every day about the values that we wish Americans would live by that create a more prosperous, safer, and happier society for us and our children. Yeah, I'm not sure I see the controversy there.
Joy Behar is appalled. It is a weird quirk, a very fascinating cultural thing that maybe we could talk about, that almost all the justices are Catholic, except for Kagan is Jewish. And
6 Catholics
Jackson
and 3 Jewish Americans. That's the current religious makeup of the court.
That's pretty wild, isn't it? That's like there's something there.
I'm sorry. Wait
anyway,
a second. No, that's Justice Jackson replaced
Justice
Breyer. Sorry, I went to the previous previous framework.
Yeah.
So.
But still, that's a lot of Catholics.
A majority of the current justices are Roman Catholic. That's correct.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so he says we need to return to godliness, and that's supposed to be horrible. What about we just can't compromise. We got to live peacefully with each other, but there are differences on fundamental things that can't be compromised.
Well, and in that regard, and notice what he's saying, and we can contrast it with what Chief Justice Roberts is saying, where Chief Justice Roberts clearly is holding people at arm's length in terms of not engaging in conversations that he is perfectly free to engage in, kind of being a more savvy politician.
So real quick, he says he was asked the same questions, and he says, well, that's for people we elect, that's not for lawyers. It's our job we're just the core. We decide the cases the best we can. He didn't engage.
Actually, Mike, because Alito said the same thing, that the two justices just had a different emphasis on it. With Roberts, assuming this is not all selectively edited, and because this is a partisan hack job, totally, this was deceptive.
Yeah.
This was like if I had a recording device on me at the Supreme Court talking to justices, I'd be subject to bar discipline for that. Now, evidently, she's not a lawyer, so she doesn't have to worry about it. But I mean, this is in the courthouse, talking with the justices and talking with all of them. This was a profoundly dishonest setup. She's identifying herself as someone other than who she is, claiming to hold views that she doesn't hold, trying to get them to engage in conversation.